All right, welcome back to another episode of the Tricamera Perspective podcast. Today, I'm with my friend here, Karen, and we're going to be talking about End of Oak Street. Okay, let's get started. Could you do you have any early thoughts, just initial reactions to the entire movie in general?
Yeah, just to start off, I think this, just I guess at a grander perspective, it's been a really good summer for a lot of big releases. I think there's things like The Odyssey and Spider Man and Minions that have kind of taken off and have done really well. And I will say, out of all those movies I just mentioned, I like The End of Oak Street more than them. I think this is a defining blockbuster movie, the type that we haven't seen in a very long time. And I am super happy that someone like David Robert Mitchell took the time to attempt this type of movie again. I'm not saying it's perfect. I think for general audiences today, they might be more inclined to some of the other movies I mentioned, but this is one I think is incredible, and I was blown away by the execution.
Okay. A lot of high praise coming from you. I know you have very particular taste and high standards for the films that you enjoy. Um, though that said, I do think I'm gonna have to go the other way on this movie with you. Not that I
Okay.
think it's a bad film, but I guess I came out of it a little disappointed.
Oh, interesting.
Uh, but then again, I think it had a much a higher skill, a higher, I should say, skill to cover in terms of like meeting my expectations. Because I'm not super into dinosaur movies. I tend to find them quite a bit disappointing. From except the very first Jaws, but like for the most part, I've not been too enthusiastic about dinosaur movies. But like whenever a new one comes out, I'm like, it's a dinosaur movie. I'm gonna see it. That said, when I went to see this film, overall, I thought it was very competent. It's a decent watch, and I can see this this is you're really impressed with it. I can see a lot of people liking this. But for me, I felt it was more like a short like a short film that was extended. And in some points in the script, I felt a little bit of the executives sort of influence and like I can imagine like the original version of the script that was probably submitted to the studios, and then some of what be considered revisions for a blockbuster being added on to the screenplay, especially towards the end and with some of the decisions that
Oh,
they make. But that's just my take on it. Like it really felt like I wish this was more of a short film. Like in terms of it had the oddly enough this Twilight Zone
that's
feel.
exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of Twilight Zone energy of just here's a random event on a random day that affects these people. And I think that's a good thing. I think there's a lot of filmmakers, especially that have played in the horror genre, that take a lot of inspiration from stuff like the Twilight Zone. And I don't think that's a negative for this movie at all. I'm curious as to what you think the studio interference was, because this to me felt like a complete like narrative story that Mitchell wanted to tell. I didn't feel anything was being pushed aside.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna go into detail about the some of the plots in the movie. So if you haven't seen the film, I would suggest you log off at this part and come back when you're done watching the film. I do think it's worth the watch. But what I'm talking about specifically is regarding the death of the 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 father. I've
Okay.
forgot who
Ewan
plays the character.
McGregor's character.
Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, essentially, when he dies, how he's brought back into the movie at the very end felt like more of a. It felt very shoehorned in. Like they really had
Mm.
to make sure this ended on a high note. It felt very Hollywood in terms of the ending. Like I really thought they were gonna I thought it's very um brave to really go there and kill the dad, but then sort of how they said the whole loop and everything that they did with separate realities and everything, and bringing him back in sort of just took me out of the film a bit towards the end, and it felt very, oh, we have to end this on a high note, very
Mm.
Hollywood blockbuster. And then and for me, as someone who has had a lot of history with like Eastern storytelling, and they don't shy away from like gut punch endings. It just felt I could feel like I said, I could feel the studio executives giving notes on how you should do the ending. That's just how I
That's
felt.
very interesting. I didn't feel that at all. I think it was supposed to play a shock value, and I think what happens kind of, I'm not saying this is like a time travel story. I'm not going to get too much into that aspect. I think just like the idea of kind of going back to the beginning day is part of the narrative. And I guess my big takeaway from it is like that shock value of McGregor's character actually dying plays into the larger theme of what I think the movie is really about, which is a suburban mom who's unhappy, trying to figure out if she is comfortable in her marriage and if there's any love still there. And I think this is, or I should say, I think the death was used to show her that even though there are hard times and she doesn't fully know what she's feeling at that moment, the love is still there. So to me, it plays into the idea of like the rebirth of their marriage as opposed to, oh, the studio notes or the studio came in and they're like, oh, we have to fix this. It has to be a happy ending. If it's more about a woman trying to rekindle her love and her appreciation for her family, I think that's a value to show her like, oh no, I wasn't ready to let this go. That was my big takeaway. I think this is a movie that's really focused on, in my opinion, the idea of like being trapped in suburbia. And is that something that everyone is capable of, especially if you're a creative type? We learn the Anne Hathaway character is writing a novel secretly behind her family. And this kind of shows you like, do you long for the more adventurous life out there, or are you happy in what you have now? And I guess where maybe the happy ending does come in for me, which I don't think is a criticism, is she gets to write the book and still have the family. So I can see how maybe the death can become, oh man, that's so dumb. They brought him back. Why'd they do that to begin with if they're just going to bring him back? But it serves the overall story to me that this is a woman learning to love again. And I think that is just something that needed to happen for her to really figure out what she was feeling about the relationship.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely see that perspective on what the screenplay, what the film was going for. Um, though I do feel the more interesting path that I would have liked to see the film go in would be more so her how she, sort of the aftermath of dealing with her husband's loss and everything. We kind of touch on it a little bit because there's a bit of film. There's a bit of runtime after he dies, but um, I don't know. Like I felt really felt emotionally invested when the dad died. Eventually, at that point in the film, but then I was trying to see how where this will go, how wrap up and everything like that. But then when it's like going into that, sort of, it gave me that end game effect of going back and redoing things. I don't know if you felt this way about Endgame. A lot of people enjoy Endgame, but I don't know. I didn't like the whole idea of going back to redo things that have already happened. It just feels too convenient, and I'm not a huge fan of time travel plots, anyways. Like, of course, I enjoy the odd time travel movie that's done pretty well, like time travel multiverse. I'm just a little skeptical on those. Oh, that's me coming from me saying
No,
that I
that's
love
fair
the
for
Spider
sure.
Verse
Yeah.
films. Those are huge multiverse movies, time travel, everything. But yeah, when they're not done right, most times they're not done right. I'm not a fan. This is sort of a weird, time. It has this like weird time gimmick in towards the end, and the whole reversing the death. And whenever I see that, I start checking out, honestly. So I guess it's a more of a me thing. Maybe I don't know if I haven't seen many people talk about this, so I doubt many people feel the way I do. But yeah, it's more of a personal taste thing. Yeah.
Okay. No, I see that. I think especially with some more less than stellar time travel stories, it can become like a crutch where nothing feels like it's learned at the end. I think time travel, if used effectively, can serve like, and the moral of the story is the journey we went on. So you get back to the beginning, and that's where you learn the story, especially if it's more like in a story aimed for kids. Now, I'm not saying the end of Oak Street is aimed for kids. I don't think that's the case. It definitely has a more like Amblin-y, all ages feel where you can show this to someone who's maybe 10 or 12. So the lesson can be more presentable to them as opposed to like, oh, here's the hardships you have to endure. Then you can have them learn those lessons and at the end go back to where they started and have figured that out, which I know it's not going to be for everybody. I don't love all the stuff you're saying about like Endgame and all that. I don't think it's ever been bad. Time travel is just kind of hard to get right. And I think that only serves a minimal purpose in this story. This is more about a neighborhood movie, a horror film, a survival story, the kind of movie, I kind of already mentioned this too. It's the kind of movie we don't really make anymore. It's the kind of blockbuster we don't really see. I was trying to think of examples I could pose for like what I was thinking when I was watching this, and I didn't dwell too much on like the time travel aspect of the movies I was thinking of. To me, this reminded me a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. It reminded me of Tremors or Gremlins, these kind of movies that take place in this one location. There's a threat to kind of avoid, and you have to use the resources around you to fight them off. And I think that is kind of hard to present in a very sincere way to modern audiences today because modern audiences have kind of seen it all, they know it all. To like if this movie came out, let's say in the year it's set in 1982. If this movie came out in the year 1982, it would be a VHS classic today. People would still be talking about it. There'd be numerous sequels spawning out of it. It would have a different feeling than what it does now. So I think the fact that some of the more cheesy stuff, I'm using air quotes here when I say that, where it's like, oh, we have to wrap up the ending very nicely and everything's going to go back in a pretty bow. People wouldn't be criticizing that if the movie came out in 1982. It would just become another one of these big disaster flicks that people enjoy. And I think it does have something to say that modern audiences don't really know how to experience this again on a wide scale. Because I talked about the Odyssey already. You brought up Endgame. Those are two different types of movies than this that kind of serve the same summer blockbuster thing.
Mhm.
They have a different feel about them as opposed to kind of like cashing in on like the nostalgic 80s feeling of a movie set in a neighborhood with a suburban family and there's bullies and there's like the old neighbor who doesn't can't do things for herself and just a family dog. We don't really do this type of movie anymore for a blockbuster. So I feel like some of the criticisms I'm hearing other people say or that you're saying now, I think it's just maybe if we watched more of these in theaters lately and had this type of blockbuster, it wouldn't feel as like hokey or like, oh man, now the dad's back.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That said, let's talk about some of like the actual style in the film, like cinematography, production value. I found the production value to be pretty, well done. I found it recreated like the '80s, like pretty well compared to like comparing it to other major medias that have created like the '80s. I'm thinking Stranger Things. I thought it was quite up there.
Oh yeah.
Although I did think some of the cinematography itself um, was a little less than stellar. It did feel like a set at some points to me, or I don't know if you felt that as well at some points.
I was pretty much blown away with what I was seeing behind the camera. Uh, David Robert Mitchell, I know we were talking before we recorded. You're not too invested, or you don't know a lot of his previous work. It's a lot more smaller, kind of psychological stories like It Follows or Under the Silver Lake. I think, as from a directing standpoint, what he's doing here is his best version of a Steven Spielberg, where
Exactly.
he knows
Yeah.
the perfect type of blocking. Here's where we're going to frame each character within the house or on the street. And I think some of the like visual language, the certain styles he's choosing. There's like a scene where the whole family is sitting in like their living room and it's like a split diopter shot each time each character is talking to another one. And it's just like that is not necessary for a movie like this. And the general audience isn't going to pick up on like what that is, like the intense close-ups and the focus on certain members. But I think he's going for this like off kilter feeling of everything is in motion. Every single frame has just a small detail added to it, whether it's like a tail moving into the bushes, a very specific harsh green color into it. It really feels like nothing else in cinemas right now. And I just respect it so much for trying that. And we did have a Steven Spielberg movie come out this year too, I should say. Disclosure Day came out too. this is as close to like that in terms of the visual language, where the camera is always moving down on like the street, it's zooming in on things in the bushes.
Yeah, I agree with you. It feels like a film that honestly, if you told me this movie was made in the 80s, like around that time, I will believe you. It feels very much out of that time.
I feel like
In
that's
terms
what
of
it's going
yeah,
for.
the
Yeah.
filmmaking style as well as recreating the period and everything. So it's a very interesting on that point. Although I will say this, for the budget, I thought the creature designs were actually well done,
Oh,
very varied,
they looked great.
di-
Yeah.
uh, very very dinosaurs that they chose, very interesting ones. Like yeah, the slimy one that was crawling, that
Oh,
one's actually a very unique one that I haven't really seen even in the big Jurassic Park films. But like very interesting designs, the really convincing. I also like that the director really understands the power of imagination, so like sometimes not showing you the entire thing, like let the audience imagine the
yeah.
worst. So very effective in that, that horror angle on the screen, on the sorry on the filmmaking. And yeah, overall, I thought it was quite immersive in terms of the production value and cinematography and everything like that. How did you find the performances, like from the leads and the rest of the cast?
I found them to be very good. I think Ewan McGregor is kind of the perfect guy to play this era of like 80s dad. He kind of has an everyman quality to him. The high pitched voice definitely helps. He's a little dorky, a little nerdy, but you still got like this guy was Obi-Wan for his whole career essentially. So there's still like he can lead something like this. He doesn't feel out of place in here. I really liked that the children were age appropriate to the actors, like Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor. Like they didn't have younger kids.
Yeah.
One of them was graduating, and I felt like, oh yeah, that's good. We're not trying to pretend that these actors aren't in their 40s and 50s. So I appreciate that. The kids, I think, were really good for what they had to do. I don't think that's not something that you're going to get a lot of juice out of. Is like playing the kid role. Oh, my dog ran away. Oh, there's a girl I like. I'm trying to impress her. Oh, I'm the older daughter is a lot like I found her a lot like the girl in Jurassic Park, where she like, oh, she knows all this stuff about black holes and wormholes and portals and stuff, just like the girl in Jurassic Park knew about like the computers and stuff. So I mean, you have to have it because someone's got to say what's going on. So
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
against it, but I have thoughts on Anne Hathaway's performance. I would like to hear what you're thinking about the acting in this, though.
Yeah, I thought she actually. I would definitely say she's the of course she's the lead, but I think she had the best performance in the film for sure. I really felt her character and her journey. So it like very strong remarks. A plus in that regards for the film in terms of acting. Fantastic. The supporting cast. Um, I'm not a huge fan of like for what do I given. I thought the kids were pretty good. Nothing outstanding there, but not like they were given too much to do. So the heart of the story is that the journey of Anne Hathaway's character through the film. So there, in that regard, it really excels, and her bouncing off with her Ewan McGregor playing the dad. So in that specific area, it really excels. And honestly, for the most part, that's really what they need to nail for this film to work. And I felt that. So on that regard, I really enjoyed it. So yeah.
I'll
Okay.
just say, this is the year of Anne Hathaway. Like she's been in Mother Mary, Devil Wears Prada 2, The Odyssey, this movie, and she's got Verite coming out still, the Colleen Hoover adaptation. As it stands, this is my favorite performance that she's given this year. That might be a hot take to say, but I'm just a sucker for a distressed housewife who is searching for more. That's one of my favorite things to see. And I think she really portrays that. There is a sequence I keep thinking about, and it just speaks, I guess, to like my mentality, where they find out that their basement flooded, and her first reaction is, oh shit, my manuscript,
Yeah.
this thing I worked so hard on that I didn't tell my kids or my husband about, I just lost years of progress on this thing, and now I have to go be a mother and pretend my life didn't just fall apart.
Exactly.
I think she did incredible. I think she's good at this. She has rarely done the action role. She's kind of been in dramas or comedies for a very long time. So this is kind of her getting a chance to do like an action horror film, a lot of running, a lot of shotgun work. She's very emotive, and I appreciate that. I think this is just fantastic stuff from her.
She had a very physical role in Mother Mary as well this year. Although I found that film to be quite interesting. It was definitely interesting that it was made, but I don't know if I quite enjoyed it that much. What did you think of Mother Mary? I'm just curious. Just an interesting.
I liked Mother
You
Mary.
loved it?
I wouldn't say I loved it. I think what it was doing was really clever and interesting. And I think Michaela Cole's more of the breakout for me in that movie. But man, just it's nice to see like someone like Anne Hathaway who's been doing this work for decades now, and she's still finding these interesting and creative things to do for star power. There's not a lot of her contemporaries that would do this. I would cite before I guess in the trailers before I went to see End of Oak Street, there was the trailer for Practical Magic 2, and that is with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock, and the stuff they're doing in that movie compared to what I've seen Hathaway doing this year. It's really nice to see someone just emoting with their natural face and being able to portray it like a grieving mother.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So in terms of Anne Hathaway's performances this year, I've seen, I would definitely rank the this one End of Oak Street performance as her best. I thought she was very convincing in this. Then her second would definitely be The Odyssey for me. Third one would have to be Mother Mary, and the last one will be Devil Wears Prada. Even though I don't really rank the movies in that order specifically, but like in terms of performance, that's
Yeah.
how it go. How about you?
I would probably say it would go The End of Oak Street, Mother Mary, Devil Wears Prada 2, then The Odyssey. And that's not a knock on her performance as Penelope at all. I think she is probably in the top 3 performances of that movie. She's probably going to get an Oscar nom for that movie. But if she does, I'm going to be like, oh, it's because you had one of the best years of your entire career this year.
Yeah, and the Oscars introduced like multiple nominations for a single
Right.
actor.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, you never can tell if maybe she has multiple buzz. But yeah, so overall great performance on End of Oak Street. We had a bit of a sidetrack there talking about Anne Hathaway. She's fantastic. And overall, my final sentiments on this would be on the film in general would be I would really be while I say I'm not uh as impressed as I would have liked to be is that I don't know. I feel like if this was the first film or first or second film of an up and coming filmmaker, I would be really impressed and like, oh, I want to see what they have next in store. But for I don't know, for a major studio smart blockbuster, it just felt a little underwhelming to me. But I can after talking to you, you've changed a little bit my perspective on the film, so I can see where it's coming from in places I didn't consider. So I have I would say I have some a newfound appreciation for the film, but overall I still did find it underwhelming. How about you?
I think this is a really good summer blockbuster. I know I said that at the top, and I stand by it. This is the type of film that we rarely make anymore, and if we do, it's not done as well. It's maybe done a little cheaper and with like less style to it. This is a very competently made movie. I think this is David Robert Mitchell knowing exactly the kind of tone he's going for. And as far as like a story or a movie that involves dinosaurs, on my personal channel, Tsunami Studios, last year, I did a big event where I looked at a bunch of different dinosaur films. It was my Dino Summer. I talked about maybe 10 different dinosaur movies starting in like 1925 up until the most recent like Jurassic World films. And this is like, from my personal opinion and having kind of like gone through the history of dinosaur films, it's doing a couple of things differently in terms of like this genre. It's using different types of dinosaurs, very different style, more feathers, more lean, a little more like slimy, and it's just preserving them in this world where they're not truly aggressors until they're just like hunting the people. So it's not trying to portray them a specific way. I found it was just more like we're in their environment and this is the outcome of it. It is the most original dinosaur concept on film since Jurassic Park. And I think that is really something to behold.
I would agree with that sentiment. That is the most original, or even the most ambitious, dinosaur concept since Jurassic Park. I'm curious though. Would you classify dinosaur films as monster films as well?
I think, oh, that's a good question. I think it really depends on what you're trying to do with it. I cited Tremors earlier, which I don't know if you've seen Tremors. It's a bunch of
I
like
haven't seen Tremors.
it's like set in the desert in like this small town. There's like a bunch of like big worm or snake things in the ground, and it's just people like on rooftops of shotguns trying to knock them down with Kevin Bacon as the lead. I think it really depends what you do with a dinosaur. If they are like the aggressor or more Godzilla adjacent, I would say yes. Then it's a monster movie. But you can't say that for all of them. Like I don't know if this is a monster movie. It's more like Jaws, kind of just like here's a creature and you're in the element of them. And then you have, things like Land Before Time. And I wouldn't say those animated dinosaurs are monsters. I guess they're talking cartoons, but it depends on I think what you're doing. This to me is more like
Horror dystopia. I
I
think that
would
might be
say
the closest.
horror. It's more like a horror movie as opposed to, you know, here's a big rubbery suit stomping around attacking everybody. That's more like what a monster thing would be to me, or like a slasher is more of a monster as well.
Yeah, yeah.
This,
It has a tone of a
yeah,
slasher too, a little bit.
it's a
Yeah.
little more gremlin-y, just like here's some creatures, but I wouldn't say they're monsters.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't have any more thoughts on this film. Overall, I'm gonna give this. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 on and 3 out of 5 stars. How about you? What would you give it?
I'd probably go 4 out of 5
Four
stars.
out of seven
Yeah.
stars. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So that is all our thoughts on this film. If you guys have the chance to go check it out, I definitely would recommend you do so. It's one of few original, blockbusters coming out this year. There aren't that many, so if you have a chance to support it, go ahead and support it. And yeah, do you have any last thoughts or any sentiments before we end today's session?
No, I think it's just really fascinating to see how people are talking about this movie, how they're thinking about it. I've seen both sides of the argument that it's good, that it's bad, and I think it's just really refreshing to see a dinosaur movie and a horror movie on this scale that looks this good and feels like you could instantly go to a video rental store and it'd be one you'd seek out.
Yeah. All right. That is all for today, folks. Take care.
Thank you.